Hey saddle hunters, well we're down here in southern Alabama and I have a saddle review for you, so stick around, we're going to get right to it. Hey guys, Matt from MADHUNTS Adventures. As I said, we are in southern Alabama and I found this beautiful WMA down here, thousands of acres. I wish I had time to do some scouting and hunting, but I don't. So instead, we're going to focus our attention on a saddle review. Now I've actually had several requests to review this saddle, and I reached out to Steve Richardson, the owner of Legend Saddle Gear, and asked him if he would be willing to send me a saddle so that I could review it, and he was happy to do so. Now through our conversation over the last couple of weeks about this review and about the saddle, Steve has decided to be a sponsor of the MADHUNTS Saddle Tour, and you will see Legend Saddle Gear on my website as a sponsor shortly. We are in the process of putting all that together, so I'm really excited to not only welcome Legend Saddle Gear to my saddle tour, but also to take a look at this saddle and put it to the test. So with that being said, just a quick disclaimer, I did not purchase this saddle. It was sent to me for the purposes of this review as well as the saddle tour. So with that being said, the saddle will not be given away, but that's exciting news because more guys are going to get to test out this saddle as it travels with me to the different expos, meetups, archery tournaments. Guys are going to actually get to put their hands on this saddle and put it to the test, so I'm really excited about that. A little bit about Steve really quickly before we get into the saddle, because I think it kind of gives us a direction to look at as we're reviewing this saddle. So what I learned about Steve is he has 20 years of carpentry, builder, and designer background. He's also worked with cranes and strapping off large loads. So he took that mentality into building this saddle, which took 2 years to build due to the length and angles of the bridge loops and the straps. Steve's goal was to build comfort directly into the saddle rather than having to make a ton of adjustments to find the comfort. So the bridge pitch adjustments on this saddle are going to make regional adjustments, not just upper and lower panel adjustments. So I'm really excited to see this saddle in person and put all this to the test. So with that being said, let's get into the saddle review. So as I said, this is Legend Saddle Gear, and this is their Tomahawk X saddle. Now I'm going to get a weight on this as well. I don't have my scale with me currently, so I will show you the weight of the saddle right here on the screen. Alright, so there is the weight. So here is the Tomahawk X saddle. Just give it a turn around for you so you can see the whole saddle. Okay, before I get too far into looking at all the details of the saddle, I just want to say that the saddle is made in the USA, right in Virginia. Now this is a single panel saddle with 4 webbing straps, 2 across the top and 2 across the lower section of the saddle. So as you can see, there is no mesh on the sides, and that is for flexibility in the saddle. So that will allow the saddle to have some flex to it as needed. The saddle also has 2 rows of molly loops. It has one across the top of the saddle here, and it has one on the 3rd strap down or midway down. It also has 4 rows of gear loops. So it has a gear loop here, a gear loop here across the bottom, and it has a gear loop on this side and a gear loop across the bottom on this side. So you get 2 rows of molly. They look to be kind of sewn fairly tight, but not too tight where you can't get a finger in there. Should be really easy to accept a tri-glide attachment or your traditional attachment. We'll put that to the test. But then you also get the 4 gear loops as well. Now the 4 rows of MOLLE webbing make the bridge loops transfer your weight evenly throughout the entire saddle as well as the seat. That's what took Steve 2 years to design, was the angles of the bridge loops as well as the straps that run through the saddle itself. So there should be no pinching on the hips based on the design of this saddle. So we'll put that to the test, see how that works out. It does have an AM steel bridge, an adjustable AM steel bridge. It adjusts on your right side, and it has a sewn on tender. So the tender is sewn on. It will float up and down your bridge loops, girth hitched or a running eye or running loop on both of your bridge loops. So a nice looking AM steel bridge. We'll put that to the test. We'll also see how well these hold up and down the bridge loops. So interested in testing that. Now your lineman's loops, they come off of your MOLLE loops on the top and the middle strap, or MOLLE loop strap here. Folded over webbing with a camouflage outer shell. Now your leg straps, they do have side release buckles. But the cool thing about the leg straps, Steve is also including a set of G-hooks. If you don't want these polymer side release buckles, you can take those off and you can replace those with the G-hooks. Now, in my opinion, just make absolutely sure you want to make that switch, because once you cut these off, you will actually take a pair of wire cutters and you will cut this right off of the loop, and then you will slide your G-hooks this way or vice versa, this way, into the spot where your side release buckle attaches. So make 100% sure you want to remove that before switching to the G-hooks, but you do have the option to do that. There is a instructional video on the Legend Saddle Gear website that shows you how to do that, so I'm not going to get into that. So we'll set those aside. Now your leg straps do attach here on the sides. There is some sewn webbing that attach your leg straps, and they are completely removable from the saddle. They attach to this webbing that's sewn on the bottom with a tri-glide. So all you have to do is take that off and your leg straps will come off the saddle completely. I know some guys like to remove those. I don't recommend it, but it is an option if you prefer. Your waist belt is an ADF Raptor style buckle, and it is one directional. Will only go in the one way. There are 2 keepers on the waist belt, and you can adjust it on both sides, your left and your right, so you can kind of offset that buckle to the preferred side. It is sewn directly into the top webbing here. So that is an overview of the Tomahawk X saddle by Legend Saddle Gear. So let's get everything put on this saddle and go put it to the test. We will sit in the tree for a minimum of 1 hour, maybe longer. All right guys, well I've been in the saddle for 20 minutes. Finished getting everything set up a little bit ago, and we'll be in the saddle for at least 1 hour, maybe longer. And then I'll start going over everything and then give you my overall opinion. So let's hang out in the saddle for a bit. All right, so let's go ahead and test some of the features of the Tomahawk. Let's start out with the bridge through the carabiner. See how smooth that is. Very smooth bridge, AM steel. Really easy to turn for shots. So that glides through there really nicely. Let's go ahead and make some pitch adjustments up and down the bridge loops. You do have to stand up, take your weight off to make those adjustments, or put on a lineman's belt. Okay, so we're here on the high side. Let's see if that holds. All right, so that held, no slip at all. So let's move it down here to the bottom side. Okay, let's see if there's any slip. All right, zero slip. That held top and bottom position with zero slip. And it does change. It does change the feel. I feel more pressure on the bottom, but I do feel some pressure in this strap here. So I do feel it in both spots, but I probably feel a little bit more in the bottom. So as far as it being regional, I do agree that it's got pressure now on both of these straps. I want to change that back to the top and see if I feel it in these top two straps. All right, so I would say that is accurate, that the adjustments are regional adjustments and not just top and bottom strap. I do feel that in a wider location than just across the top strap. All right, so now let's make bridge length adjustments. This does have the sewn on tender. All right, so there's a nice long bridge. Now in order to make those adjustments, you do have to stand up on your platform and break that bite after you've had a load in it. So now let's see how the tender works in shortening the bridge. One-handed adjustment there, was easy to make. So we made some adjustments on the bridge length. We made adjustments up and down the bridge loop, and the tether height is probably about nose high, and it's completely comfortable. So let's sit in the saddle for at least an hour, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts on the saddle. All right, so it's been an hour and 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. I put the dump pouch on as well as my dropout bag on my right hip and walked around a little ways, and then also grabbed my pack and walked out here and walked around the base of the tree, and there was zero saddle sag at all. The waist belt held the saddle up in position just fine. It was nice and tight. The waist belt never loosened up. When you are walking, there is a slight pull on the back of the legs here as you're walking. There's no pain, it's not uncomfortable. The bottom strap of the saddle, you just feel that pulling against the back of your legs as you're walking. The molly loops are far enough forward you can look right down into your dump pouches. My dropout bag attaches with a tri-glide attachment, and my dump pouch on the left side attaches with your traditional style Velcro with the buttons or the snaps. Both were easy to install. Amsteel bridge slides through the carabiner really nicely. It's real smooth, no issues at all. It's easy to make adjustments on your length. You do have to stand up, loosen up that bite, use two hands to lengthen it. And then with the sewn on tender, I was able to make one-handed adjustment to shorten the bridge. So what I discovered about the tender was as you pull on the tag end of your bridge, or the webbing material climbs up on top of the knot, and it doesn't necessarily break the bite. It does work eventually after I keep playing around with it. All right, well, it's a couple weeks later. I'm actually out here doing some turkey hunting, just about to wrap it up for the day, but I needed to test a couple things on the Tomahawk X saddle. I did reach out to Steve, just made him aware that I was wrapping up the review, and made him aware of the couple of things: the tender that was climbing up on top of the hitch, the back of the saddle pulling against, not pulling, I can just feel it across the back of my legs. When I reached out to Steve about that, through his testing, he did a couple things and asked me to give them a try. So that's what I'm out here doing today. So what he asked me to do was not take my weight completely off of the saddle. And that way, when I pull, it keeps the webbing flat down on the tag end and should push against this hitch instead of climbing up over it. So if I leave a little bit of weight in the saddle, and as I start to pull, that does break the bite. So let me make it long, and I'll practice that again a couple times. Let me get all my weight in it. So right there, that is really tight. So I'm going to leave just a little bit of weight in the saddle and see if I can break it. And that just worked. Real simple. The first thing I'm doing is I have the saddle pulled up a little bit higher than where I would normally wear it. Normally I would wear it down here by my belt on my hip bones. As you can see, when you pull the saddle all the way up, it pulls it off of your legs and up on your butt. When you pull the saddle back down on your hip bones, the bottom of the panel curves into the back of your legs. I think touches the back of my legs is a better way to describe it versus pulling. There's no pull at all. As I was walking, I could feel that bottom webbing just touching the back of my legs. So the other thing I did was I loosened these leg straps up almost all the way out. Okay, so that does alleviate feeling the saddle touching the back of your legs. The bridge pitch adjustments hold in all positions with zero slip at all. So when I did make those pitch adjustments, I did not just feel it on the top and bottom strap. I would say that it was a little bit more regional of a feel, but it was kind of hard to tell. But I did feel a difference in where it was pulling when I would change the pitch from the very top to the very bottom. And like I said, it is a subtle difference, but it does feel more like a regional, like it's pulling on those two straps versus just the bottom strap. Adjusting the tether height up and down was comfortable in any position that I put it in. I've been very comfortable and really haven't had to make any adjustments at all. I've made adjustments just for the sake of testing out the different functions of the saddle, but I really didn't need to make any adjustments at all. So overall, it's been a very comfortable saddle, and I would say the adjustments are really easy to make. So if you want to see exactly how the Tomahawk X rates against all 33 prior saddles that I've reviewed, make sure you check on the spreadsheet, which the link will be in the description below. Well, if saddle reviews like this are helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up, maybe subscribe to the channel if you feel I've earned it, and hit that bell notification for more videos like this. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Now make sure you check out my website as well and get signed up for my emails. But most importantly, I hope you get out and enjoy your own adventures. Take care.